Namaste, viewers, and welcome to Amazing Vedas with Dr. Pariksith Singh. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for joining us. And congratulations on your new book, Vedas for Gen Z. And viewers, we have been talking about it. We have been sharing some tweets on X, all of which were short and brief and meant to, titillate your curiosity and to get you interested in the Vedas, which is a wonderful, I would say, scripture, the primal scripture of humanity. The Vedas are not a religion. And this is what I'm going to request Dr. Singh to read. But I just want to say one thing. You talked last time about the dialogue between the Brahmin and the rabbi. For Raja Rao, this was the most important dialogue, even for our times, because
That's right.
it really, shows you two different ways of approaching the ultimate reality. So it's something we need to explore deeply. And as one of our greatest living professors on Hinduism and religion, Professor Anand Sharma, has clarified, he's written about 100 books, He's been a professor forever at Montreal, at McGill, and I know him personally. And he says that the conflict that we see in the world is not just between religions, let's say between whatever people see now in the Middle East and elsewhere, even in the Indian subcontinent. But he's saying at the root of it are two different ideas of religion. So it's not a conflict between religions, but between two different concepts of what religion is. And that's so profound because these are conflicts within religious traditions. There are those who think that a religion means only one thing, and there are others who say that same religion can mean many different things. So the fundamental fight is between the pluralistic, open notion of wisdom and the fixed, rigid, maybe clergy defined or whatever. So these are intra religious as well as inter religious conflicts or issues. And your book is right on the dot because we talked about the textbooks and how they're depicting these other religions and very negatively. And that's partly because their notion of religion is not what we accept at all. Sanatana Dharma is not a book centric or a prophet centric or a dogma centric religion. It doesn't have one God, one scripture, one prophet, or even a bunch of prophets, or a certain end or a certain beginning. It's a very open system, and the Vedas represent that. And your book, actually brings it out. And for viewers who are, scholarly in their inclination, even the meaning of the word religion undergoes a change after Rome gets Christianized, after Constantine. Because if you read Cicero, religion simply meant the reverence for the gods, which is what we have in the Vedas. It's the consecration of life through the invocation and reverence and the worship and adoration of these deities and gods. And then, after, the conversion, as it were, then religion becomes religare, that which binds, and it's dogma which binds. So when I read your original manuscript, and the opening portions are after the jokes, which we've already talked about, how the rishis were laughing. You also say the Vedas are not a religion. So may I request you to read that opening paragraph or a few paragraphs, please?
Yes. And I even quoted. So I think the first chapter is, this is not a religion. Religion is belief in someone else's experience. Spirituality is having your own. I quoted this. I like this from Deepak Chopra has said this. Pause and ask, what if truth isn't something you follow, but something you realize? Before we misunderstand everything, before we go any further, we need to clear up a major confusion. The Veda is not a religion in the traditional sense. It is not a fixed belief system or a set of rules to follow or a moral checklist that tells you what to do and what not to do. If you approach it like that, you will miss the point entirely. The Veda is closer to a field of inquiry, a space where human beings try to understand what is real what is not, and how to live intelligently between the two. It does not begin with belief, it begins with observation, not written, heard. The Veda is called Shruti, which literally means that which is heard. Not written first, not read silently, but heard. Spoken, sung, remembered. For thousands of years, the Vedas survived without physical books. Let that sink in. It was preserved word by word, sound by sound, tone by tone, forward, backward, in patterns. This wasn't casual learning, it was precision at a level we rarely see today. Why? Because they believed something radical shapes our consciousness, and that sound is not information, it is a vibe.
I like your vibe, sir. So I'm going to ask you, you said it's not belief, it's experience. So, when I was a graduate student many years ago in the US, people, sometimes Seventh-day Adventists, other people, nice people, would come and carrying a copy of the book and would knock on your door and say, "Oh, we want to give you the good news," and all. So, no disrespect to anybody, but sometimes they'd ask, "Okay, so, what are you, who are you, etc." So the first thing they used to ask me is, "Okay, tell me, what do you believe?" So I'm going to ask you, "Okay, I don't know who you are. I don't know anything about the Vedas. I don't know anything about Sanatana Dharma. I'm a young guy and I see you and you want to give me, or ask me to buy this book, Vedas for Gen Z." So it's, "Okay, Dr. Singh, tell me, what do you guys believe in?" What are you going to say?
I don't believe in anything but the beauty of my own personal experience and realization.
Wow, the beauty. So then a person will say, "What did you realize? Why is it beautiful? I think the world sucks."
That's true. So that itself is a very important thing, because right now, right here now, things are perfect. Things are beautiful. Absolutely. Now, you don't have to believe it. I'm looking at you. I don't have to believe in you to see you here. That is the difference. To see directly, to perceive, to experience, to be conscious, to have that joy, the joie de vivre, the, the bliss of existence, that has to be lived, experienced, shared, and brought out in this universe.
Right, but what they will say is that, "What's the use of this? There's no congregation, there's no set of do's and don'ts. What can I teach my children? I have little kids growing up, and how do I teach them right from wrong? If I gave them 10 commandments, or if I said, for example, I was watching one of Agatha Christie's early, adaptations, picturizations, and it's a beautiful confrontation, between these two people. And the husband, who's not such a nice character, whatever, he asks his wife, then, "So, what are your values?" He's asking her. So she said, "Duty, honor, and love." And so he says, "Love comes so late?" She says, "Yes, because, I mean, you're my husband and I owe you a duty. I can't run away from you just because you're in trouble now." Of course, he's a terrible guy and a crook, but that's a different matter. Because we realize that in the name of love, he dishonors her and he doesn't do his duty. So, you know, so what I'm trying to say is that if you simplify things, sometimes, children want, or not even children, people want some direction. That's why when religion just becomes a set of do's and don'ts, something that binds. So what do you do when a young person asks you, "Okay, Vedas, what do they believe in? Like, what am I supposed to, suppose I say to you, I like your idea. I like your idea of finding beauty and, seeing the fun of things, seeing the perfection here and now. I like it, but okay, what next? What do I believe in? Or what kind of value system do I derive from this very broad? Because I know your book has these. That's what I'm trying to elicit
Yes,
from you.
my
How
book
do
is a
you,
lot of value systems, but I try to keep them behind me. But the most important value system is to be truthful. That's it. To see things as they are, to see oneself as one is. Out of that clarity of seeing, just the intense honesty, the sincerity to see things as they are, you get rid of all the garbage, the falsehoods. And if you look at the belief system, it is really never my belief system. It is someone else's belief system that is imposed on me. If something has to be a belief system, it has to be based on my own personal experiences and realizations, and not someone else's thoughts are doing imposed on me. How many people have the intelligence to look at that? First, you need to open up space. Opening up space to be able to explore, to be able to experiment, to see, begin to see who you are. You need to get rid of all the secondhand things that have been poured on you. We have been given definitions, we've been given tags. This is who you are, take this definition, and we have defined you. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't work, because your definition is not who I am. You may give me a clear definition. What I feel, what I experience, this is a something entirely different. This consciousness cannot be framed in words. So, to be conscious, to explore, I need to get rid of all that is blocking me, whether it's thoughts, whether it's words, whether it's definitions, whatever is encumbering my investigation into this pure consciousness that is always here. Then I need to do that. That is my honesty, that is my authenticity. And in that following of that purity, of that consciousness that is there, some keys and clues are found that transform this existence, this consciousness, this world that I'm living in. If there is a belief system I have, it is the belief system that all beliefs are a block to our growth.
they're
And
all
when we,
contingent. We have to see the contingent nature of these things. But in our earlier episode, we talked about pasha, the
yes,
meditation,
yes,
which opens up, you see things. And that's why the Vedas actually tell you, at least in the great Upanishads, which are a part of the Vedas, they say asatoma sadgamaya. So there
yes,
you are. Truth is a great value, but not just truth, reality as it is, because truth also seems to be, whether it's fact or this and that, facticity is itself, fiction, a form of fiction. But asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, so from darkness to the light,
yes,
and mrityorma amritam. What a beautiful
yes,
set of values. Take me from, darkness to light. Take me from death to immortality. So the Vedas provide you a way of seeing the world. And if someone were to ask me, Dr. Singh, I would simply say that, for me, the Vedas show me the interconnectedness of everything,
yes,
the oneness, that I don't feel, divided. I don't feel alienated, nor do I feel that I'm alone in a hostile cosmos. I don't see the division, the drastic binary between subject and object. I begin to experience that the table, the chair, whatever, this light, the screen, somehow there's an interconnectedness at the particular and at the particulate level. And it's only when you flip out into a different kind of consciousness that everything starts becoming alive to you. From being in a dead world, surrounded by dead things and eating dead food and feeling dead, suddenly everything gets animated. Isha vasyamidam sarvam, it's like Jagatyam Jagat. I mean, there are worlds within worlds, you know, the multi-world, the multiverse, and suddenly, things start clicking and the synapses or whatever, and I begin to see myself, as a part of, I mean, we talked about it, the non-locality of consciousness, being trapped in yourself. How terrible that is. That's why we want to tipple or, take some substance which so to speak, blows our minds, like whatever. But it's the Vedas that just show you, like, dude, just look around, everything is pulsating with the same vibe, as you said, with the same light, with the same consciousness that animates you.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
one way to
Yeah,
look at this
absolutely.
world.
So the way of the Veda is that of feeling a deep connection with everything, a deep compassion. In fact, that's how it ends. Let our aspiration be one. Let our hearts be one. Let our minds be one. Thus, we should organize and come together, seeing all of us as one family. Now, if I come to you with a system that I'm superior, you're all inferior, that I'm exclusive, you're all other, when I start othering people, then it divides. So, to be able to get rid of all divisions is the approach. And I think we have to really take a look at how we believe, what makes us believe. Its belief is usually fed by either fear or greed. And the moment fear and greed come in, that belief will be flawed. To be able to look at a belief system in a very innocent way, in a very simple way, that kind of viveka, that kind of discrimination we have to develop. In fact, Krishnamurti used to say that beliefs dull your mind. So if you get rid of the beliefs, you're immediately sharper. Now you don't have to depend on some afterlife, someone who's going to take care of you. You become insensitive. Now, if there is nothing else, guaranteed success, now you're going to pay attention. If my car is warranted, I don't have to worry. I can bang it anywhere. It's covered. I'm fine. No, there's no warranty. You are responsible. Suddenly I start paying attention. I'm not drunk. I'm not doing crazy things. I'm not going at 200 miles an hour, which people have done. I know people in our own uh, company who have done it. They do it because everything is covered. Everything is assured. Suddenly, if I take all the assurance, now you're paying attention. Oh my, let me figure it out now. Now you're investigating. And that investigation itself is a new finding. Just the beginning, the fact that you're investigating, you've already changed things. You're suddenly humbler, you're quieter, you're more curious, you're full of wonder. And hopefully, that wonder itself will bring you to a direct appreciation of the great mystery that life is. We don't have that. We have killed it. We have stuck the butterfly on a tray of wax, and we've killed it. We have defined it. We have dissected it. But that's not who we are. We are alive, and we cannot dissect ourselves. We have to keep that life in its most vulnerable, most tentative and sensitive space, and allow it the ability to fly. And that, if we can do, then we can change the world into something more evolved, better, and more beautiful.
Yes. So, on that beautiful note, thank you, Dr. Singh. I recommend this book to the viewers. We'll talk a little more about it. And on that note of attentiveness, sensitivity, compassion, and oneness, Tadekam, thank you so much. And do join us in the next episode of The Amazing Vedas. And do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Namaste.